more of them. And I'm going to go through into these at these points so we can get there. I'd like to at least have you to be able to activate your Maharic seal tonight before you go so you can begin running that current. All right? Okay. Oh, I also, too, want to point out, we do have, I guess there's still some left. The Tangible Structure of the Soul program was also meant to help with this. This program was given before January of 2000, before D12 frequency was available. It begins to build the lower currents all the way up to D11. You use that program with this program, and you're amplifying the heck out of your Maharic seal. Just so you know, that's where that fits in, because some of you have seen that and some of you have bought it over there. All right, so anyway, we have the Earth Core Kathara Center 1. We have the Nuan Yun in the prostate gland and in the vagina, Kathara Center 2. We have the center is called the Dal, and it's actually two centers, number 3 and number 4, that form the Dal are right here in this area of the body. They're over the I can never even pronounce that, uterus in the males, and the females, they're in the ovaries. So right in these areas here, there's actually spots in the body that when you start to push, if you lay down on your bed and your muscles are relaxed, start to push, you'll find tender spots. There's actually spots where the nervous system in the body is more sensitive in those areas because it's connected to those areas. So start poking your body a little when you go home tonight. Look at the grid, look at where they are, and see if you can start finding them, because it helps if you can locate them in your body. You'll get a feel where yours are, and you'll also be able to start to get a feel of where clients are when you start to work on them. All right, 5 is called the Seat of Amente. Now there's reasons for that that have to do with the halls of Amente stargates that we won't get into here. Just the name of it for now. Okay, it's at the navel in the central body current. So it's right where your navel is, but go right to the center of your body where the central body current of electricity runs up and down the body. Okay, the 6th and 7th are called the wings for short. Okay, they're in the shoulder indents and they go through to the back. So they're like right in here. You can press around in here, and after a while you'll find a sensitive spot. You go, oh, that must be one of them. And there's an area in the back corresponding, as if they went right through, where there's a sensitive area back there too. What's interesting, a little trick on people that have breathing problems of any kind, or someone having an asthma attack around you, if you can get on the back of their body and you can find those areas where the wings come through in the back, and if you find them on yourself, like by pushing around the front, you'll get an idea where they are in the back of the person. Rub them vigorously with the thumbs around the wings. Doesn't matter which way to stimulate those wings. You can very often stop the asthma attack or restore the breathing rhythm. So that's a little trick that's very helpful and immediate with working with the Kathara centers. Okay. Now, number 8 is called the Spark of Orion. It's in the thyroid gland at the 8th chakra. Now, when we learn the chakras where they are, the 8th chakra comes out, one end of it comes out here. So it's right around in here. And it affects the thyroid gland and actually the thymus as well. But primarily it's focused in the thyroid. All right, so it's in this area up in here. That's a little harder to feel because you have bone in the way. All right, the ones that are easier to feel are the ones that are in the soft tissue. And that'll give you an idea of what a Kathara center feels like, because you'll actually go, oh, ow, that didn't really hurt, and you press that, and it's like, no, it didn't hurt, but you kind of flinch when you first find them, and you push on them hard. The 9th and the 10th together are called the Shar. They're in the brain, actually located in the brain, but behind the ears, back in these areas. Now, it was hard to show that on this diagram, but they're behind the ears, and they're literally inside your brain, so they're hard to get to if you're going to directly rub anything. You don't need to worry about rubbing them, because most of what we're going to do with the Kathara grid is run energy through it, and we're going to use chakras to run energy through it, and then they're much more accessible because they're on the outer levels of the body. The 11th one is called the crown jewel. It's in the pineal gland at the center of the brain. Now, our pineal glands, science tells us, are dormant. They've atrophied. They're useless. They do nothing. Just wait. Let's see what they say 10 years from now. Okay. The pineal gland has a whole bunch of things to do with running the Kundalini currents. There's something called cranial sacral seals. In the pineal gland, the cranial seals are in there, and they connect to a set of corresponding seals in the tailbone. And when these seals begin to open through activation of the DNA, they progressively allow more and more currents to run up the central body current, which feeds the chakras and all the rest of the systems. So there is the 11th Kathara center is located in the pineal gland, and it will, as these centers begin to activate they will progressively, as your DNA begins to activate, it will create the chemicals that bring the pineal back into activation. It'll be critical mass activation. First, you'll get little bursts of it, then it'll shut off. It'll go so fast that if science studied you 24 hours a day under a CAT scan, they weren't going to see anything. 3 or 4 years later, they might start to see little weird light spots that are appearing on CAT scans in the brain regions that they can't explain why they're there, because the pineal begins to transmit light. So there are things that this center is going to be activating. As we activate the currents here and begin running them up and down, we're actually triggering activation of all the centers, but it's an in-sequence activation. There are some Eastern philosophies that teach you how to activate some of the Kundalini currents. Now, the Kundalini currents go directly, they are the primal life force currents, the lower aspects of them. There have been Eastern philosophies that teach you how to activate them, and people have really bad activation sometimes, where they crash, they go nuts for 6 months, they get physically sick for 2 years. These are not going to happen with these activations. There's something that they have not incorporated into the teachings, in the Eastern teachings. Well, it used to be there, but they took it out. Which is, first of all, if you have mutations in the DNA and you start blowing those currents through, you're going to create all sorts of blockages all over the place because the frequency can't go through those blockages. Without the D12 resetting the pattern, you got to be nuts to run these frequencies. But because we can run D12 frequency, you can bring the D12 frequency in to restore the mathematical pattern, which will allow for the time that you're holding the D12 in the body, will allow you to have the right sequence of frequency activation. So as the Kundalini currents activate, as we run frequency through the kathara grid, we are building the ability to run more of our main vertical current, but we're doing it in the right sequence. We're doing it in the proper sequence as held in the divine blueprint. So you're not going to have crazy crashes. You're not going to have your body explode on you and things like that can actually happen if you use the Kundalini currents in the wrong way. That's why it's the safest DNA activation program that you'll work with. You'll still get some weird feelings sometimes, like you're having hormone rushes, which you are because hormones respond to what's happening in the template. But you're not going to have those horrible crashes that, you know, I've heard about several people who've literally had to be institutionalized because they went mad by running the Kundalini currents trying to blow the sacral seal, the cranial sacral seals, too early and out of sequence. So you won't have to worry about that stuff with this. The capstone kathara center that corresponds to the Maharic shield directly, that's the one that corresponds to D12 frequency. It's called the capstone. It's in the 10th chakra, which is 6 inches above the head. We're going to learn the chakra system now, so we know where our chakras are, because the chakras are going to be where we put stuff. Now we're going to learn about the shields too. I think that's the next one that comes up. Which is the next one? The shields. Yeah, we'll do shields first. Okay, now, again, the kathara grid. We just learned where the kathara centers were in the body. This is page
70.
70, thank you. Okay. The shields that we talked about, they're part of the kathara level 2 grid. You have the 4 shields. This corresponds to density 1, dimensions 1, 2, 3. Density 2, dimensions 4, 5, 6. Density 3, dimensions 7, 8, 9. And dimensions 4. Density 4, dimensions 10, 11, 12. This one's your Maharic shield. This is what we're going to activate. So we can, and we're going to activate just the little center parts of it. If you activated the whole thing, it goes out for 144 miles. Yeah, it's big once it activates. And when it activates, it creates, under the feet, a crystalline structure that you can see with D4 and higher frequency. Like with D4 perception, you can actually see the grids glowing. And it's like a disc, like a little hover disc that you get to ride on, like a platform of light. And at first it starts out small. And we begin to activate just the center frequencies. And progressively, as we work with running D12 current, we bring more and more of it into activation. If the whole Maharic shield is activated, you'd have all of your 12 strands activated. And that would be, you would have a 144-foot disc. And you would be able to expand and contract the disc as far as you wanted to. You could send it to China and back to pick up information, or to send messages, or to bring frequency. But the first part is getting it activated. Now, the Maharic shield will activate down here, below the feet. You have chakra 12 down here, and that's 6 inches below the feet, and 6 inches below that you have your Maharic shield. If the 12th chakra isn't open, you can't run, you can't activate your Maharic shield. Remember, this is the thing we haven't been able to run for 200,000 years here. So this is a real treat that we get to do this. The Hierophant symbol code that we talked about before holds the mathematical key that will open chakra 12 and trigger activation of the Maharic shield. Now there are 3 other shields on the body. They're the lower frequency ones. This one down here, when your DNA strand templates 1, 2, and 3 are completely and fully activated, all 12 subharmonics in each one, there's a little shield of energy that pops out, kind of like a hula hoop, but a little lower. And you can learn to actually modulate it and move it and change its angle, and it gives you different levels of knowledge, different information. But in the beginning, it's just about getting it activated. Now, people that work with dimensional Merkaba activation instead of harmonic Merkaba activation, dimensional means they're only using the single smaller Merkabas and parts of the spirals rather than the whole spirals. They are teaching you to use this shield, which is your telluric shield. That corresponds to your mental body, emotional body, and physical body. They're teaching you to use it actually, at the moment, in some of the teachings, a reverse rotation. So you're reversing your DNA codes by spinning it in the wrong direction. Yeah. So tomorrow we're going to get into what is a Christos Merkaba spin, because Merkaba is very powerful. It has the ability to interface directly with the DNA template. And if you generate enough of a reverse spin, you begin to start reversing the codes in your DNA template. You begin to reverse the mathematical imprint. And right now we have a third of it, or 2/3 of it running in reverse anyway. So, anyway, this is the telluric shield. And this is what's interesting is I've watched some of the other stuff, but I haven't really studied the other Merkaba activation techniques that are out there. I just saw a little bit of the technique itself and said, wait a minute. That doesn't work. And why aren't they teaching them about the Maharic shield? Why aren't they teaching them about the shields that come out? How can you teach Merkaba without teaching the shields? Because it's all about the shields. When the shields activate, the vortices of energy around the body activate and in the body. They're teaching you how to play with these vortices of energy around your body, but they're not teaching you what they're connected to or how to get control of what you're activating, because they're trying to get you to spin stuff into the planetary grids that doesn't belong there. So the shields are important to understand because these control the Merkabas. And the Merkabas can, if they're used enough in the wrong direction, reverse the shields, which will reverse the DNA template. And this is what we're trying to avoid, is any more reversals in our DNA template, which means if the mathematical sequence runs in a certain way in the divine blueprint, they're running it in the reverse matrix, which creates an anti-Christos current. And it has to do with where you end up when you leave here as well. There's a place called phantom matrix that's built on anti-Christos current, reverse matrix current. It is, how did they word that, a subspace black hole system that was part of the grids, the scalar grid of this time matrix, that was literally blown off the grids and reassembled itself on the anti-Christos rotation. And there are beings. This is where, when I talk about fallen angelics, that's where they live. They can't bring in primal life force currents in the normal way because they've cut their Christos connection. They go from D11 down. What they do is they tap in to this living time matrix and they feed energy off of it. They feed off planets by attaching to the beings that live on the planets. So when we talk about frontwards and backward rotation of shields spinning, because these things, once they're activated, begin to spin. And they all have a natural spin rate and a natural rotation, which controls how the Merkabas around them. See, there's a Merkaba that will come down this way off that shield. There's another one connected to that one, another one connected to the one that you'll see in a minute up above the head, and another one connected to here. So these shields are pertinent to understand that they exist and understand that they're part of the level 2 kathara grid that will control the mathematical program of Merkabas once you get into Merkaba mechanics. The shields are important, and because these guys can control the Merkabas, what you do with the Merkabas can affect these as well. Right now we have distortions in our shield 1, our telluric shield. 2/3 of it are running in reverse right now, which means you have it doing loop-de-loops, the parts that are activated in the body. But most of it is actually shut down. That's why we die between 75 and 100 years old, because we're not getting enough life force current into the body anymore to actually sustain it for any longer flashline sequence. The next one here corresponds with this one, dimension 4, 5, and 6. It's called the Duratic shield. This is the one we're going to begin to activate to run Duratic phase 1 current, which is the first current from the higher density fields that we're going to use in learning to do kathara healing. This one corresponds to dimensions 4, 5, and 6, which is density 2. And what's interesting is when we get into, if we go back to the universal kathara grid and how universes and planets also have shields, a stack of shields like this in each of the density levels. This is where some names you might have heard before come into play. Earth's planetary shield down here, it's dimension 1, 2, 3 shield. It's called the Earth shield. In density 2, it's semi-etheric matter shield. There is a part of Earth's planetary base in density 2 time cycles, and it's made of a little bit less dense matter than here. It's called Tara. In density 3, Earth has a counterpart and a shield. It's called Gaia. This is where these words are coming from, Earth, Tara, Gaia. And the one that you haven't heard here in probably over 25,000 years, because it's almost been like a curse word to the fallen angelic races, is the word Aramatena. Aramatena is the tonal signature, and therefore the name, of the density 4 Maharic shield for this planet, but also for this universe. So the planet plugs into the universe. Earth, Terra, Gaia, Aramatena. Everybody has a part of their own being in the shield of Aramatena, which is the shield, the Maharic shield, the divine blueprint of this particular time matrix. So when we look at the shields, we can think of the levels in our own body, but they're also the Earth, Terra, Gaia, Aramatena system. Aramatena is also the name of a planet in the Lyran star system, in Lyra, the cradle of Lyra. That's the point in the Universal Templar where stargates 12, they correspond 12, 11, and 10 exist in Lyra. They are the 3 first stargates you need to go through to get into density. Anything has to come through them. So that's why some people have heard of the cradle of Lyra concept. That's why they call it that, because those stargates, those kathara centers on the universal level are located in the Lyra star system. The portions of ourselves that correspond to these shields, our personal shields, are actually a part of the corresponding planetary bases. This shield of ours here holds our Earth frequencies. This one is connected to our Tara body. We have a less dense version of ourselves right now that is totally interactive. Our thoughts and their thoughts completely cycle. It's in density 2 Tara in what would be a future time cycle compared to this time cycle. When we begin to integrate, do soul integration of strands 4, 5, and 6 activation, bring those frequencies in, we are merging our self here and our Tara self to become a fully actualized soul. And that's when we begin to have the ability to move our body between both systems. That's the first step we're going to learn when we get into the real, what is all this going to do once we get DNA activated. Eventually we're going to be taught, those of us who can be trusted, and it's a big trust factor, to bring somebody from this time field where everything's so messed up, through portals, because that's how you get there. You would actually modulate your DNA, shift into full 6-strand activation, continual, and you would demanifest here because your body would turn into a Merkaba vehicle and you would pop up into the Terran time cycle. Semi-etheric matter. This shield, the next one, this is your soul shield and your Tara shield. This, and then it's called the Doradic shield. This one, the next one is the D7, 8, and 9 shield, your oversoul shield. It corresponds to Gaia. And this one manifests here. Okay. Manifests up here like a little halo. In the old days, when the Christos teachings were trying to be put through without getting people killed doing it, it became very stylized. Artists that knew something put halos on people that were special. The halo concept in the artwork always referred to activation of the oversoul shield. Many times you would see holy figures floating on clouds or on discs of light. These paintings were people that knew some of the ancient knowledge and knew they'd get killed by the dominating forces on the planet at the time if they told it directly. So they told it in pictures. The angel wings, you know, the wings that we see on angel pictures, had to do with these, because when this one activates, when your Doradic shield activates, there's a cross current that happens that literally comes out like this. It comes out this way, but it also comes out this way in the back, like wings. The images of what our energy fields are doing have been encoded in our artwork for many, many centuries. Because during those centuries, there was the Illuminati forces that were running this planet at the time would literally kill anyone who tried to teach things directly. In fact, they went after a lot of the artists who would demonstrate these things. Even that was too much. These are the parts of ourselves we're reclaiming. We have these shields, and they're directly connected to Merkaba. So when we begin to learn Merkaba, we'll remember the shields. We'll remember that they're connected to the Kathara grid. These are part of the Kathara level 2 crystal seals grid. There's also another level to the crystal seals grid that's still part of the same level 2 grid. And the next one, please. It has the chakras on it. I need that one.
That one on the chart.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go through. I'm going to skip through part of that and go right to. Yeah, we'll go right to the. Yeah, because I talk it anyway. Okay, the next one. This is on page 71 in your books. This one's a lifesaver for me. For the first year, I was trying to remember where all my parts were, at least the most important ones. At least if I'm going to run a symbol. Where was chakra 15? You know? This chart shows part of the crystal seals grid. Now, there are 15 crystal seals. 12 of them are embedded in the body. They correspond to the shields. Remember, the shields are three-dimensional. So crystal seals 1, 2, and 3 would correspond to the telluric shield of density 1, etc. There are 12 star crystal seals. These actually control the vertical axis angle of the Merkaba, dimensional Merkaba levels associated with them, which means they control the angular rotation of particle spin in the body, which means they control what angle of flash line sequences your consciousness and your body is going to be stationed in. The crystal seals are something we haven't taught too much in the Kathara program yet, because it's like, yeah, they're there, and we'll get to those in later levels, but at least you know where they are. At this point, we're beginning to teach more about them because they're starting to activate in the planetary grids. The planet also has 12 embodied and 3 other, 3 kind of like in the higher dimensional fields, star crystal seals. The star crystal seals are beginning to open on the planet now, and within the next 2-year period, all of the star crystal seals in the human bodies are beginning to activate, which means they're going to throw through the frequency corresponding to them, and again, star crystal seal 1 processes dimension 1 frequency, etc. They're going to start pumping the harmonics, the 12 harmonics of each, or subharmonics of each dimension, into the grids more fully, which means they're going to go into your body, they're going to go into the DNA template. The star crystal seals are opening rapidly now in the next 2-year period, which means your DNA is going to start really doing stuff soon. It already has, actually. So there are charts that we'll get into in the Templar book, because they're really more part of the Templar course than they are Kathara, because we're talking about them on a planetary level. Because on a planetary level, when star crystal seals open, if there are distortions in the grids around them, things like volcanoes, earthquakes, tidal waves, and all sorts of other messes occur. So this part of the grid work that we're doing in the Templar courses is to do what we can by using our electromagnetic conduits of our bodies to run balanced frequency into the grids in the empowering stance of what's called a round table, which are the ancient Stargate technologies of how to run the grids, so we can hopefully balance the energies of the star crystal seals opening in the planetary grids. Now in the bodies, it can also create tidal waves and earthquakes and volcanoes of sorts, you know, in the physical, mental, and emotional bodies. It can cause destabilization of energy and frequency because we have distortions in our template. So I'm really wondering what it's going to look like in the next 10 years as these seals open and then the frequencies start to integrate. Because it takes about a year, I think it's between 3 months and a year after a seal opens, where it actually starts to transmit its frequency through the body. So it's going to be real interesting to see what people do in the next 10-year period as all these frequencies are going to be running through their physical, mental, and emotional bodies. There's going to be people who get very sick. There are going to be people who are going to leave this planet. Their souls know that their bodies aren't going to withstand it. So some of them are going to go out in groups. You're going to have more natural disasters to accommodate that will, that desire of those people. If you start seeing weird stuff happening, like bunches of people getting killed, don't go into the 3D mindset of, oh, isn't that awful? So, no, there's a whole troop that wanted out of here fast, right? There are no accidents. There are arrangements. And they may appear to be unfair sometimes, but there are reasons why the particular arrangements were chosen, and they weren't inflicted on the people. They were chosen by their own soul, oversoul, and avatar levels. So, when we get into crystal seals in the personal body, it helps to know that they exist. They're in areas of the body that right now we don't need to learn where the crystal seals are, because we're not going to do anything directly with the crystal seals, because again, the chakras are going to be the most important place, because this is where you're going to be running frequency through. Now, there's these things here. Let me see. I'll try this. This wonderful lady said, why don't I try this for a pointer? And I'm so used to my old pattern of not having one, I haven't tried it yet, but I'll try this. I feel like the old school marm kind of person. Yeah. I used to use one of the laser pointers, but I tend to move so much when I talk. I'd be holding it someplace, and I'd look at it, oh, there, there. Wait a minute. Oh, no, it's up there. And I kept losing my place. So I went back to the finger. All right. These things here that are drawn as little stars are the star crystal seals. They're the only ones shown. There's another type of crystal seal that's a little bit smaller, and it controls dimensional Merkaba axis and instead of the harmonic Merkaba axis, because the star crystal seals control the larger harmonic Merkaba axes, where what are called seed crystal seals are little tiny ones that look like this, but there's another set of them in between each set of chakras. So you'd have one here. See these little bow tie shaped things? That's one chakra. Chakras are bow ties. They're like a set of black and white holes hooked together at the center that make a bow tie. And when you take the seal out of the middle, they come together and become a Merkaba field. All right. So chakras, these are the 15 primary chakras are shown on this chart. Each one, each set, I should say, has its own little seed crystal seal that works as the bow tie between them. Now these two are a little hard to follow, because you have chakra 7 and chakra 1, and we call them chakra 1 and chakra 7, but they're actually, each is a half of one main chakra. But we still call them 1 and 7 because that's consistent with other things that are out there, and there's enough additional information that we're teaching people now. We don't need to make it more confusing by renaming stuff that's already been named that people are familiar with. You know? So we have chakra 1 and chakra 7, and down in through here there would be the seed crystal seal that controls it. It actually pops up in the 3rd chakra, right around here, right up above here. We don't have to worry about the seed crystal seals directly, because right now we're not going to be doing anything directly with the seals other than using the chakras. Now, if you take a mathematical program, you activate your Maharic seal current, bring it up through your main vertical current, which is this line of energy here, okay? You're going to put a symbol code, let's say, over the area of the body where chakra 4 is. That's the one that corresponds to the astral body in dimension 4 and your 4th dimensional frequencies. You'd put the mathematical program here, use the breath to induce it, and bring it in. Where does it go? It goes into the seed seal. So you're actually programming the seals when you use the chakras to put in symbol codes or to run light or frequency. Now the seals are part of the level 2 Kathara crystal seals grid. So what you're doing by programming through the chakras into the seals is bringing the desired mathematical program and frequency directly into the level 2 Kathara grid, which will translate it down into the level 1 Kathara grid. So you can work with the chakras to work on level 2, and it will take it into level 1, and you work with level 1 directly to amplify the frequency and clear it with the D12 frequency by running the Maharic recoding process. So they're all interwoven systems, and as you're doing all of this, as you're working with these systems, you are progressively clearing and building your Merkaba fields. All right, and we'll talk more about Merkaba fields tomorrow in the Kathara level 2 introduction. But everything here that you're learning about these other parts, directly fill in a piece of the frequencies that form your Merkaba vehicle. So people that have heard of Merkaba and that are familiar with Merkaba teachings but haven't heard any of this stuff, you've been shortchanged on your Merkaba teachings, because they're not teaching you what they're connected to. This is what they're connected to. When you work with these chakras, you're not just dealing with chakras, you're taking it into the crystal seals grid, which is allowing you to program into the Kathara level grid, and it's allowing you to begin the process of activating DNA. Tomorrow, after my long night tonight of playing with the graph that I've been dreading doing for the last 2 days, we're going to show you the transduction sequence of how the life force currents passes from the Earth all the way through all these levels to get out the other side, and then how it comes back again. So it'll make more sense of how it's like what's connected to what's connected to what. There's a flow here. It's like piping, like pipes in plumbing. You know, to get from point A to point B, there's a conduit of energy. If it's a water pipe, it brings water from one point to the other. These are conduits of energy that bring energy from one point to the other through into your manifestation. Okay, so the chakras here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's charts out available on those ever since the old Hindu days. They know about the 7 chakras. But then 8 is interesting. You see these that run at funny angles? Here's 8. It starts here. It's up above 4 and below 5. 5 is in the throat and 4 is in the heart chakra. This one comes out here, but it doesn't go straight back this way. It goes at an angle up this way through the pineal and comes out here, the back of the head. Number 9 is even more tricky. It starts here, and a lot of people these days are getting activations here where they're getting swelling right here at the back of the head where the neck and the head hook on, where the neck hooks onto the skull. Right here, I've actually had times where it swells and it hurts and you get headaches and it throbs. There are certain levels when you start to activate even strands 1, 2, and 3 on the 9th subharmonic, and 8 and 9 usually go together. That's where you usually start to feel the frequency build up. It's just starting to come into the body, and it can be really weird. It can feel really pushy and squishy back there, like it's swollen, and then it'll go away, and then you might have a day where you feel like you're in a fog, like somebody put cotton in your brain or surrounded it with a nice, gray fuzzy blanket, because no matter how hard you try, you just can't get focused. You feel like you left part of yourself someplace, like back in the bedroom when you woke up this morning. These are part of they're very transient symptoms, but they're some of the things that happen when these higher chakras begin to activate, because these have not been activated in ages. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 have been dormant for a very long time. In most people, even 6 and 7 have been primarily dormant. 6 gives you the inner vision and the higher vision, the interdimensional visuals. 7 allows you to connect with all sorts of frequencies up there that bring knowledge to you that's been blocked from this planet by the fallen angelics. So we are reclaiming our biology these days. The planet's helping us now that it can run D12 frequency. We're going to be active. These are going to all be activating now. And they go through their natural cycle where the first subharmonic of D8 will activate, then the second, then the third. You'll get little bits of activation of these as you get little bits of activation in the corresponding DNA strands. In the 12-strand DNA template, it's real easy. Strand 1 corresponds to chakra 1, corresponds to seal 1, corresponds to kathara center 1. They're all connected. So it's not hard to remember. Once you have, once you remember where things are located, at least knowing what they're related to is pretty easy to follow. All right, so you have we're back here, chakra 8 goes this way, chakra 9 goes that way, and again it crosses through the pineal, and as these activate, it releases the pineal seals progressively. Pineal seals are connected to other seals down here in the tailbone, that when these release, that's when you start feeling like somebody kicked you in the back of your tailbone, where it starts to get squishy sometimes, and you wake up. I've woke up in the morning sometimes and realized I was activating current all night and not knowing it, and I felt like it wasn't made of bone anymore. It felt like it was made of very loose cartilage. And it was like, how do you stand up if your tailbone and your first vertebrae are made out of very loose cartilage, because they're not rigid and they don't hold you up, and it hurt. So there are times when you might get a series where, especially in the morning is when I get them, where my body is activating current at night to get me ready for the next day and the next level of DNA activation, and I wake up with backaches, and it's usually right centered on the tailbone. This will clear, and I've also been guided, that you can take Advil for this. They said not Tylenol, not other stuff. They said, as far as chemicals, it would be easy enough to process. During this process would be Advil. So that's what we've taken. Now, we've also taken Aleve when it gets really bad, but not so much for this. This is for other things that come up with other seals in the bodies that cause painful releases. Not all activations are painful. I don't want to scare everything. Oh God, is this what I have to look forward to? There are sometimes where you get bursts of energy, you feel great, and you can feel yourself expanding. You can feel your awareness coming in. You'll start to get rushes of energy that, well, if you realize what they are, they won't scare you. You don't have to go running for the hormone pills right away. It can keep you up at night. Who said 8 hours sleep was natural or normal? First question. We're so convinced. We call ourselves insomniacs. If we can't get 8 hours sleep a night, there's something wrong with us. Is there? D12 avatars don't sleep ever. They don't need to. What we do when we sleep is we take a part of our consciousness out of association with the lower strands, take it up higher, pick up a load of energy, and bring it back down, because you can't get it in directly unless you have seals open down here. You'll find as DNA activates, sleeping rhythms may go right out the window. You might never know when you're going to be tired, where you might have days on end where you're exhausted. No matter how much you sleep, you may have days on end where you are manic. You just have so much energy, you hadn't felt this good since you were 10 years old. You know? And it's really annoying when you're trying to go to sleep at night. You say, you know, I have to get up for work at 5 in the morning. This is nice that we're activating DNA, but I still have to get up for work at 5 in the morning. You know, you learn to work with it. And everybody has to do it personally. What, I mean, a half hour? Okay. Okay, I'll leave time for, you know, so we get the technique done. Anyway, he's reminding me we have half an hour, and I'm determined to get you through those techniques. There's 2 techniques I want to get you through tonight. Okay, now, chakra 9 was there, and it runs that way. Chakra 10 is right up here. It's 6 inches above the head. Chakra 11 is 18 inches above the head. Chakra 12 is not up there. It's down here. It's 6 inches below the feet. And that's the one that needs to open so you can trigger your Maharic shield. And that's what happens when you use the Hierophant symbol code. When you run it down into the Maharic shield, it hits this and triggers this into activation at the same time. Now, down here in Earth's core, right in the core of the Earth, is chakra 13. What this creates for you is a conduit of energy flow. And this little skinny current in the middle progressively gets wider and wider and wider. The more DNA template activation you have, the more your Merkaba field fills out, the more stuff you have activated, the wider this current gets, to the point where it's not only inside you, it expands all the way out around you. If you had 12 strands activated, your Maharic shield would stay active all the time, and you would have a pillar of silver light. Whenever you entered density, you would literally have a pillar of silver light around you. Some people would be able to see it, some wouldn't, but it would be around you at all times. What you're doing when you're activating the Maharic shield manually is you are manually creating, calling it into being, waking it up, your Maharic shield pillar. So for the times when you're running the frequency of the D12 frequency to activate Maharic shield, it will pull up this pillar of light. Now, if you were fully 12-strand activated, that pillar of light wouldn't stand alone around you as just a protection field. It would literally go all the way through you. Right now, this is a little current in our bodies that has to be progressively expanded out until eventually it's out around us, until eventually it is the Maharic seal that just stays there, and you don't have to worry about being afraid of anything at all, which you don't have to worry about anyway, but you don't have to worry about activating it manually, because when everything is working well and you have 12 strands activated, it will stay activated. But what you're doing in activating the Maharic seal, you're not putting something artificial into your system. What you're doing is manually activating something that belongs to you anyway. You're activating it prematurely because it might take you another 500 years of evolution down here before, because of the way the planetary grids are, before you could actually get that to do its thing all on its own. Because what would happen was all the lower stuff would activate first. This current would fill out and get thicker and thicker, and eventually it'd be out here, and you'd integrate oversoul and it'd be out about here. And then eventually, after all that integration, you would get your Maharic seal. What we're doing is we're bringing the Maharic seal in manually, and it'll progressively trigger moving inward and moving outward, the activation of the currents in the body, which is activation of the DNA, the Merkaba, the Kathara grids, the crystal seals, etc., etc., etc. If you activate one, you're activating the other that corresponds to it. Okay? Okay, I think that's enough on that chart. I'm getting breathless here. I must be starting to talk fast. Okay.
Page 75.
I'll let you read the little words all to yourself because you can make sense of what they mean. I don't have to dissect every word on this diagram, thank goodness. The purpose of this is to show you that, okay, you have your chakras, and remember the crystal seals are in there, but I didn't complicate the diagram by putting them on here too because you already have them on the other page. These are showing the levels of the Huva bodies that I talked about. The Huva bodies form your auric field. The auric field has a bunch of levels that are broken into groups of 3, and each of those groups of 3 are the Huva bodies around you. So here you have your central body current. Here you have what's called the etheric body. And this is actually something that connects you directly to your antiparticle double in the parallel universe, and it also connects you to the D15 primal light field, which is your connection to the higher light fields. All right. We don't work too much yet with the etheric body, except when sometimes if you start to do a kathara healing on someone where you're running the frequency, you might just start to see areas that have holes in it, where it looks like, you know, an energy field that is ripped, and you can just kind of project some of the D12 frequency up toward it, and it'll help to repair it. But it helps to just know what the parts are and where they are first. Okay? This corresponds, the etheric body corresponds with DNA strand template 1, with first dimensional frequency, with all the things that have ones on them. Okay? The kathara grids, the kathara centers, all of the things, the chakras, the crystal seals, they correspond to the etheric body level. The next body level here is the emotional body level, or the telluric body level. That's out to about here in the auric field. And they're a little different distance, but you can actually start to play with your energy fields. Lay on your back on the bed. You can even do it sitting up, but it tends to be easier when you're laying down. At first, you don't have distraction. It's like you can relax better. Take your hand out about here and slowly move it in. And you'll start to feel a resistance level. What you're doing is crossing one of these bands. Now, figuring out where number 1 was so you can figure out which level your bodies are at, till you have to start in close. You know that your etheric body is somewhere around very close to the skin. Try to feel it. Sometimes you can see it with other people where it's like little flickers of bluish gray light. They go, you can see it like over the shoulder or something, but it moves so fast you can actually see it better out of the corner of your eyes than you can by looking directly. But you can begin to feel it. You get an idea where that is. You turn your palm this way. Try to find the next level. And you will eventually be able to find a little tiny bit of resistance. And that's showing you if you're real careful, and okay, there's that resistance. Move through that resistance and move it slow. Because if you move fast, you'll blow right through them. And you'll think number 1 is out here and number 2 is like right next to it. So if you go real slow, you can find your levels. And it just helps to know where they are. It also helps to know, because after a while, you'll start to get feelings. If you walk into a room, you might start to get a feeling. And it wasn't even in your body, really. It was like over here. Where over here? How close to your body was the feeling? You can start to find out what frequencies are coming at you where you are. You can also feel the same thing. If you walk into a room and somebody's sending something nasty on the D2 frequencies to mess with you in that room, to mess up the grids or to cause you harm in your body or something like that. And there's a lot of grids like that on the planet right now. The Illuminati are having a field day with their electromagnetic technologies. They're sending all sorts of frequency messes around. You might find it in the chakra. Second chakra would correspond to the emotional body level, would correspond to D2. Means there's something coming in at D2, and you're feeling it. So you'll learn to begin to be aware of what your body is telling you. It's telling you that because if you feel it down here, you'll also notice there will be some place in the emotional body field, a corresponding place where that frequency is also. And if you know that those areas correspond to D2, you know it's going to be affecting your emotions. You know it's going to be affecting the molecules in your body, like the water molecules. And you know it's going to be affecting DNA strand template 2 and the chemicals that go with it. There's also area that will be an area where you would know it's time to bring up some pale silver D12 frequency and run it through that chakra. And fill that level of your auric field with the energy by the breath. Bring it up and push it out. But if you want it to go into the emotional body, push it out that chakra, the second chakra, right? D2 emotional body, D2 chakra. If you're picking up disturbance there, or if you're having an emotionally bad day, that's implying that there's something ruffling around in your emotional body field and in your second chakra. Run D12 frequency through it. Breathe it through. And breathe it into that level of the auric field, and you will begin to clear the stuff that's out of harmony within your field. Same with mental body, which is here. Okay? You have the etheric body that connects to the physical. You have the emotional body. You have the D3 mental body. Then there's a barrier here. We'll talk about the barrier tomorrow. This is where we get into radial body stuff. It's not introduced here yet, but in between here and here, there's a very magical thing called a radial body, which gives us huge power in beginning to be able to have our thought forms manifest the way we want them to. So we'll do that. We'll deal with that tomorrow, toward the end of tomorrow. But meanwhile, we have D1 etheric body, D2 emotional body, D3 mental body, D4 astral body. Astral body is the second level, the middle level. Same thing as this is in density 1. the etheric body, which is the thing that gives the subatomic physical imprint that makes the physical body. So this would be the D4 physical body imprint, okay, for the next harmonic up. This is where your soul body starts, but it's also where your consciousness first goes when you pass out of the dream state. When you're awake down here in the beta brainwave patterns, you're floating around down here. When you slow your consciousness into alpha, you're actually going down this way, into the lower flashline sequences. When you get to a certain point of slow, you pop up out here in the dream state. And this is where like the difference between waking and dreaming. You go into a brainwave pattern that's up here. Here it looks like theta brainwave pattern and several others. But what you're doing is transferring your consciousness up here. You already have a body form up here that's made of semi-etheric matter. D4 astral body. Okay. D5, this is considered the archetype body. And it's because it sets the imprint for the emotional body down here. See, there's a direct correspondence with the bodies. It's not on this chart, but D1 is a base tone, which is base magnetic, which is base particum. D2 is an overtone, which is base particate, base electrical. D3 is electromagnetic. It's base electromagnetic because it's made of particate and particum. It's called a resonant tone. Every one of the harmonics has the same structure. Bass tone, overtone, resonant tone, bass tone, overtone, resonant tone. Bass tone, overtone, resonant tone, all the way up. The tones become important because we begin to realize when we're doing chakra work, bass tone, overtone, resonant tone. Now, a bass tone chakra is a base magnetic. Magnetic should have a magnetic spin, which is counterclockwise when you're looking at the front of it. So, and right now, if you look at most chakra teaching systems, they're teaching you the opposite magnetics. Wonder why that is. Happens to go with the reverse spin on the Merkaba. Happens to go with reversals on the DNA template. So these begin to give you the keys to understanding how you can tell the difference between something that's teaching you a technology that's good for you and something that's not. If you know where the bodies connect and how things are supposed to spin and what they're supposed to look like in the divine blueprint, you can tell if somebody's trying to teach you something that's deviating from it. That's why they haven't been teaching divine blueprint here for a very long time, because they don't want you to know these structures, because they give you the power to reclaim your body form and your consciousness again. So we have D3, D4, astral body, D5, archetype body. D5, it's called either the celestial body or the angelic body, which is just a name that refers to it. They all have their own tone names, but they're not given yet because they're kind of complex, some of them. D7, you have the katharic body. D8, now again, bass tone, overtone, resonant tone. The higher ones set the template for the lower ones. So the higher bass tones set the templates for the lower bass tones. This becomes interesting when we work with triadic phase currents, because we learned that to activate a current in the body, you need A, the D12 carrier wave. That's the first thing you need before you can open any of the seals to get the current to come through. Then you pick what current you want, and you have to go one harmonic up and run that frequency to activate and release the seal on the current you want to get. That's why they're called triadic. There's three. A combination of three frequencies you need to use to get them to open the body. We'll talk about that one tomorrow. Anyway, we got astral body 4, archetype body 5, celestial body 6, etheric body 7. This is called the monadic body 8. And the monadic body is interesting because it connects directly. It has some extra energy conduits that connect directly into the primal sound field. So D8 becomes important in certain aspects. Some of the tangible structure of the soul teachings work with the D8 frequencies. There's a song in this book, and I'm not sure what page it ended up on. The Aria Kumnare works to begin activation of the D8 level grids in the entire body under the D12 Christos.